Hello, everybody. There we go. Just wanted to give Zoom a minute to start waking itself up. I see everybody coming on in. Thank you guys for joining me this month. It's August. It seems in some ways hard to believe that it's August. But thank you for joining me here in August for this month's installment of our monthly training webinar. This month we're talking about using data to send better email. Okay, so while everyone is getting into the meeting here, to the webinar, we just wanted to talk real quickly about a few basic ground rules. This should be pretty familiar to you if you've joined our webinars before. But today's presentation is being recorded, so we will make this available on the Training Academy page where you can see all of the replays of our past webinars. Now, in order to get some good, clean audio, everyone has been muted. I think that's pretty standard now. And now that we're all used to working remote and being on webinars, I think we've all kind of got the Zoom thing down pat. If you do have a question, and again, we encourage questions. I do certainly, right? Questions are what I do. So if you have a question, please go ahead and just use the Q&A feature, that Q&A box. You can go ahead and submit that question. And if you have a question about something we're talking about in the moment, go ahead and ask it. It's totally fine while it's top of mind. And then we're going to hold those questions and address them when we get to the end of the session. Okay, but if you have something that comes up, just go ahead and please do pop it in there. If you have a question, odds are someone else is going to have the same question. So just go ahead and drop it in there. That's totally fine. Okay, for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Scott Richards. I'm the Director of Training and Education here at Virtuous. I'm also known as the guy that, pops up in little messages on the screen now and then to tell you when things are going on in Virtuous. And today's agenda, as usual, chock-a-block full of things to talk about. First off, as always, we want to look at some of the newest features in Virtuous. So that means in particular, our new receding tool. We'll take a look at how that works and how that functions. And then we'll take a quick look at personalized email templates. They're a pretty cool little feature that I think have a lot of great applications for different types of organizations, different types of fundraising models. So we'll take a look at those. And then we'll dive into our featured content, right? Testing for success. Why do you need to do split testing in the first place? What's it about? Why do I need to do it? And then how do I plan for a really successful split test or A/B test? And then we'll walk through how to do that in Virtuous so you can see how the split test functionality works. And then we'll have our Q&A and wrap up for another month. Okay. So first off, like we said, we want to take a look at some of the latest developments, the newest features in Virtuous. So we'll go ahead and switch over to Virtuous proper. Excuse me, we'll make this smooth transition. There we go. As usual, nicely done. And the first thing we wanted to look at is that new receding functionality or that new receding tool so that we can see what that looks like. So the receding, by the way, has changed, right? So we have changed the way that receding will run, but that does not prohibit you from running receipts the same way that you have. Which is to say, if you're used to doing it in bulk from the results of a gift query and then going up and hitting receipt gifts, you can still do that. So you are not forced to make this switch right off the bat. This is something you have time to kind of gradually adjust to. That's for everybody. Okay, but the new receding functionality, first off, we wanted to make this a little bit more accessible to users. So now, if I'm on the gift and contact import screen, I've got my buttons up here in the upper right. We've got this add button now. It used to say create gifts and contacts. Now it just has this button here to create an import and to receipt gifts. And you can see all of those from the actions menu as well. So if you can't really remember, everything's right here, including the archived imports. But we can click here to go to that new receding tool, and it'll start you on this receding groups tab. Now, this is actually the same screen. You can get here the same way you used to when you used to create or manage receipt templates. So if you're used to doing things that way, you can still go through the settings menu. You can still go to the odds and ends. And now you can just click on manage receipts and you can see this is now our receding page. and that'll still get you right here. Now there's 3 tabs here, and on the far right, you can see we've got a tab for receipt templates. That's where you will find all of the receipt templates that you have already created for your organization, whether they're single gift per receipt, multiple gifts per receipt, doesn't matter. They'll all be sitting in here. So you can come in and grab that receipt template that you want, or go ahead and edit a receipt template if you want to. Make sure you've got them set up. But the big functionality here is the ability to create these receding groups. So a receding group, if you want to think about it this way, it is simply a link between a gift query and a gift template. Now again, you guys probably already have your receding queries built, right? You use those on a daily basis to generate receipts. So you can take those same gift queries, you'll want to modify them a little bit. I'll talk about that in a second. But then you can link that query to the receipt template that you've likely always used it for already. Okay, so if I want to create a new receding group, I click on Actions and I create group, just like it says. And I want to give this receding group a name. So what is this for? So this might be for my basic email receipt. Okay, and I'll give that a code. Now this idea of the name and code should be pretty common by now. You see the same thing for projects and for segments and for premiums and all over the place, right? You've got a name, doesn't necessarily have to be unique. The code does. Basic email receipt. And then I'm going to select the gift query that I'm going to associate with this receipt. So this might be email, receding email. Great. Then I'm going to pick the receipt format. Obviously, I'm sending an email receipt. That's what I'm setting up here. And then I'm going to search for the receipt template, and I've got a basic email receipt right here. Now I can preview that receipt and see what it looks like to make sure it's the right one. This probably looks kind of cruddy. There we go. There's my basic email receipt. Wonderful. And if that's what I wanted, great. Then I can save that receding group. And then I can go in and add another one. So I might have another one here for my basic mail receipt. And for some reason, I struggle to capitalize today. I don't know why. My typing's better, my capitalization not so much. BMR, there we go. And so we can call this one receding. There's mail, receipt format mail, and we've got a basic mail receipt in here too. Okay, and I can save that receding group, and I can keep on going. Now, you may have receipts defined by all kinds of criteria. The project someone is giving to, by their preference. Here, in these queries, I've actually used tags to track someone's preference. Do they want an email receipt or a paper receipt? Remember, that's the great thing about tags, is you can use them in a gift query. Okay, so that's some of the contact data that's available there. You may also have something based on the amount or the type of the gift. So I might have one here for a large gift. All right, someone gives a very large gift, and I've got a receding group for that. And there's my large gift. That's going to be a mail receipt, I think. Hey, it is. There we go. We can save that group. And then I'd probably also have a couple for gifts with premiums, right? So I'll build out all these groups. Now, once you've done that, you've got these little grab handles over here that you can use to drag these up and down and to set them in priority order, because someone may meet the criteria for more than one of these queries. They may have given a large gift. They may have also indicated their preference is to be received by mail. So I need to make sure that large gift is near the top, because I want to make sure that takes precedence. I want to thank them for the fact that they gave a large gift amount, more so than just sending them a basic receipt by mail, right? Maybe the large gift has slightly different language, but I also have someone different who signs it, because that one comes from my executive director. Great. I want to make sure that's at the top. I want to make sure someone who matches to that and the mail receipt gets the large gift receipt. This is very similar to our segmentation functionality on campaigns, right? Where you can associate each segment with a saved contact query in that case, and then drag them up and down to set the priority order. Because someone can only be in one segment at a time. They're only going to get one receipt for their gift. So same scenario. Now the first group here says that these are manually set. Now that's a little bit different. Okay, and this is where you'll see a change, which is that now you can actually set a receipt template on a gift. Okay, so you can do this when you create an import. So right now, for example, I know a lot of organizations have a special COVID relief fund campaign. So maybe any gift that comes in right now, regardless, is supposed to get the COVID relief fund receipt. Well, I have a new field here to set a default receipt template for my import. So I could say, hey, for all these gifts, I want them to get the COVID relief fund receipt. Set that right there. Now I can do the same thing in an import on a gift. So let's say that I'm entering a gift, and that gift is for, I thought there was an Anna, somebody in here. I don't know. Oh yeah, there we go, Anna Griffin. But I can add in her gift, and she gives me $100 and put in the check number. And under the show all gift information section, you'll now see the ability to search for a receipt template there too. So if I want to override whatever query this gift would match to, because I personally know Anna and I want to send her a very special receipt, or I want to make sure she gets the the new donor receipt template, whatever reason it is, I want to kind of override my default settings. I have the ability to do that at the gift level, and even when I create the import, I can set a default for that. Any gift that has that template value set manually on it, that'll go into the manually set group. That's why that's locked into the top spot. That way that always takes priority. Now, once I've got my groups set up and I'm ready to run receding, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to queue my receding. And when I do, you're going to see there's a couple of dates on here. So the first asks me, what should I set the receipt date as? Today's the 20th. So if I do nothing, it's going to default to today. That's great. Then there is a date range underneath that for the create date start and create date end. So when you are running receding, you do not have to have gift dates or create dates or anything in your gift queries. That's been one of the other funky things about doing receding. What do I say? Do I say create date after yesterday? Do I say create date after the start of this month? How do I time bound that to get the right group? I don't have to worry about building that in my query at all. My query just needs to look at everything else about the gift. Right here, I'm going to set the time boundary. And it's going to default to any gift that was created yesterday or today. That's what this says, right? So anything that was created on the 19th or on the 20th up until right this moment, I want to receipt those gifts. Remember that the create date is the date when the gift was imported to Virtuous. It's not the date that it went to the import tool. It's not the gift date, right? Gift date could be anything. I could enter a gift today and say that the gift date was last week because it's a check that I found stuck under my chair somewhere. So if I were to use gift date, I could miss something. But if I use create date, then I'll get all the gifts that I entered today, yesterday, whatever range I want to set. If you'd like to exclude gifts that have already been receipted, the best way to do that is in your query. You can exclude any gift that has a receipt date set. Because remember, if there's a receipt date, that means the gift was receipted as far as Virtuous is concerned. Then I can go ahead and queue my receding run. When I queue that receding run, and I'm going to set this back a little ways just because sandbox, want to make sure we get something in here. But when I queue that receding run, that's not actually going to send the receipts or anything like that. You'll see it locks everything down, but it's going to go ahead and run the queries and sort all the gifts into these different groups for me. And it's going to let me review that before gifts go out the door. And that's feedback that we actually heard from users before when you were receding from a query. Hey, I'd like to really get eyes on what's going to get that receipt before it goes out. Well, you can do that. Because all I've done is I've queued up the process and said, hey, run these queries, see what gifts match, sort everything into the correct groups, and let me know. And once that finishes, I'm going to switch over to another environment here. it's going to look like this, where it says, hey, your run has been processed. After you review the results, you can officially run receding. And you can see it gives me a count for how many gifts are in each group and a little eyeball here. And that eyeball, that'll let me view the gifts that are actually in that group. So I can go ahead and open that. We'll try to open that in a new tab. This is in a different environment that might be a lot slower, but we'll see. There's that gift. Great. Then I can actually use the little preview icon to see everything else about that gift. Now, if this looks good, swell. Come into actions and say, hey, run receding. And running receding, that's the thing that's going to kick this off. As soon as I do that, email receipts are going to get sent. They go right out. The paper receipts, the PDFs, I'll have those downloads then on the download screen. I can go get those exports, right? That'll start that process. So as soon as I run receding, then the receipts are going. If I look at these counts and I say, oh, this doesn't look right, I put the wrong gift in the wrong spot, you know, who knows what it was, well, then I can discard and then I can make changes and then I can run it again. So I can test as many times as I want till it looks right. Then when it looks right, I lock it in, I go ahead and I go with my receding. Now, I'm also going to be able to go to the receding history tab right in the middle here and see the history of past receding runs. Okay, so you can see doing some testing in here. Here's one that was completed. Here's a couple where I discarded the results. So if you discard the results, it'll still show here. And here's the one that's sitting there right now waiting for me to approve it, to finalize it. And for any of these, I can actually click on the little preview eyeball and that'll open this little slide out here and it'll show me the breakdown of gifts for each group along with the totals. And the big thing, it'll also show you the user who did it. So if you're curious about any of the past receding runs, you can see who ran receipts that day. You can see what happened on that day. Okay, that was a lot of time on that, but I know that's a pretty big feature and receding really, you know, that touches what you do day to day. So I wanted to make sure that we could review that for everybody. If you do have questions, please do go ahead, send those in. I'm happy to address questions as we're going through, or at least happy to address them as we get to the end, but if they come up as we're going through, please send them in. Now, the other feature I wanted to look at was the personalized email templates. And that's another neat little feature, as I mentioned. Personalized email templates are plain text email templates. Plain text, there's no images, there's no HTML styling to them, you don't have your logo, you know, they're a personal email. Just like if you opened up Gmail and you started typing away. And for admins, from the settings menu, I can go to data management and here's my personalized email templates. Okay, and I can come in here and I can start to create new templates. So here's a couple that I've built already. I can create a new one. This one could be called training. Have to give it a unique name. And then I'll put in a subject line. And that subject line can include merge tags. So I could say, hi there, first name. How you doing? And then again, for the body of the email, hi there, first name. Let's actually type that correctly. Why not? Great to meet you, you know, at the event last week. Great to meet you. Blah. I can't talk and type today. I need more coffee. Great to meet you at our recent event. You know, I'd love to talk further about getting involved with our group. Is, and I even have merge tags for things like phone number. Is phone still the best number for you? Nice, short, sweet email. And maybe I say, hey, this is, instead of my training email, this is going to be my event follow-up email. And we'll save that. There we go. Now I got a couple cool templates in here. I can edit any of my existing templates too. That's fine. But now from a contact record, so let's say that I saw Harry and Sally McSample at a recent event. My good friends, the McSamples. And I want to shoot Sally a note because we talked a little bit about them sponsoring a big event that we're having. So right over here, you can see the little new flag. There's a little orange envelope there. That's for personalized email templates, and that's how you send the email. Oh, for crying out loud. There we go. So we can click on that. I can choose the template I want to send. Maybe it's the event follow-up, and like we said, we want to send this to Sally. Now you can see down here it says, hey, you have email sync. So it's already going to log this note that this email you send as a note. But if I wanted to, I have the ability to create a contact note as well. If I don't have email sync, then I'd want to make sure I log a contact note. Okay. But I can go ahead and click compose email. That's going to open up my Gmail right here. It's going to populate it with this email, and it says, hi there, Sally. Hi, Sally. Great to meet you at our recent event, blah, 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 blah. Now, she doesn't have a phone number, so it's blank right here. And the nice thing is I can still come in and edit this. So instead of, is this still the best number, I can say, what would be the best number for you? I can put anything else I want in here. I can make sure that I insert my signature, and then I can go ahead and send that. So it's going to come right from my email account to Sally. And you can see that because I have email sync, it automatically BCC'd the email sync address so that that'll automatically sync back to that contact record. Okay, so this is a great thing for major gift officers to use. This is a great thing for folks who are raising their own support, right? Field users to be able to use to reach out to their supporters. Gives you a nice way to give them a leg up, give them a starter template. And then of course they can come in, add a little personalized note, and then they can send it off. Okay, so we had a couple questions coming in here. That's great, keep those coming. We'll go ahead and address those as we get to the end of the session here. Nice to see questions on personalized email templates. I think they're a pretty cool feature. Okay, but I do want to make sure we have plenty of time for our deeper dive, our more featured content here, which is on using split tests to send better email. So first off, why? Just why, right? Why do I need to do a split test, or why should I care? Hey, I've been sending emails for a while. My emails seem to do pretty well. So what's the deal? And what does this do? Well, the thing is, with your split tests, you want to do this to try to improve that engagement, right? We always want to make sure that we're testing and we're refining. And if my reach is pretty good right now, imagine if I were to give that just a small lift, right? So if I could improve engagement and I could expand my reach for my messaging and my communication, just imagine what I could do, right? You want to remember that one of the levers you can pull in terms of increasing your fundraising, increasing your totals and your performance, is to increase the amount of traffic that you get. And that could mean driving more traffic to your website. It could also mean getting more eyeballs, more traffic on some of your email messaging, and getting more people to see your CTA. Because the more people that see that call to action, the better my odds are, right, of getting those folks to convert and take the next step that I want them to take. And of course, it also lets me refine my message. So if I'm not sure if I'm positioning our organization or a particular program or project that we have, if I'm not sure that I'm telling the right story about that program, I can test a couple of different messages to see, hey, which of these resonates more? Which of these is the one that really inspires more action and more results? Because then I know, okay, great, now I want to take that message and I want to use that message in other channels. I want to leverage it on my website. I want to leverage it in direct mail, because that tells me, hey, that's what really resonates more with my supporters. And if you continue to use split tests and you use them well, then you can really start to create steady improvement in terms of your email metrics. And at the end of the day, I want to do all this testing because I want to take all the guesswork out of sending great communication, right? I mean, I can't tell you guys. I mean, shoot, everybody knows you get emails from me about Virtuous releases and features and things like that. And you sit there and think, what should the subject line be? There's There's tons of pixels of blog posts out there on writing just a good subject line. And you're just sitting there kind of using your gut. Well, don't guess. If I've got 2 subject lines, let me test them and see which one is going to work better. Now, if I am going to build a split test, and split tests, I know some people say split test, some people say A/B test. If you look in Virtuous, we actually say split A/B tests, so we just use both to make it easy. I keep saying split tests. If you're used to calling them A/B tests, they're the same thing, or we're speaking about the same thing in any event. But there are some keys to running a successful test, right? Saying, hey, man, split testing sounds like a great idea. I want to improve my email metrics. I want to drive more engagement. I want to make sure I'm sending the right message. I want to make sure I'm communicating effectively. I'm all in. Let me do the split test thing. Now, split testing at its very basic level means you're going to send 2 different versions of an email, right, to 2 different groups and test out how they respond to it. Then I'm going to send whatever's the winning version, whichever email drives more engagement. I'm going to send that to the wider audience that I have. That's what we're talking about. We talk about split tests. So if I want to run a successful split test, well, the first thing I need to do is know, what am I testing? Well, really, what am I doing here? What am I testing? What is the variable that I'm kind of looking at? Because if I send 2 completely different emails, well, it's not really a great split test. That just tells me one email was better than the other email. And so when I send a split test, I really want to get very specific and say what I'm testing, like we said earlier, what I'm testing is the subject line. Right? So I'm going to test this subject line and see, the same email, but I'm going to test the subject line and I'm going to see what works better there. Or I'm going to send the same email, same subject line, but the sender's going to be different. One is going to come from Virtuous, and one is going to come from Scott Richards. So one's from a person, one's from the org. I can tell you the one from the person is probably going to be the winner there, but hey, that's why we test. We want to see. Or within the email itself, I want to test a different call to action. I want to test button placement. What happens if I put the call to action button at the top versus at the bottom of the email? What happens if I have a 1-column layout versus a 2-column layout? What happens if I have images that show, how serious my mission is, that show children who are hungry and starving and suffering? What if the other one is the same message, but the pictures are children who are happy because they have been served by our programs? Which one of those is going to drive more conversion? Which one of those is going to resonate more? But I don't want to say, hey, one is going to have a different subject line, it's going to come from a different sender. I'm going to put a button at the top and the bottom. That one's going to be a 2-column layout, and it's going to have the happy pictures in it. Now I'm testing too many things. And the problem with testing too many things is that then I don't know which one of those things was the key to success. But if I just test a subject line, then I know, hey, this subject line was better. I just test the sender. I know, okay, next time I send an email, it's coming from me, right? I test the call to action, the button placement. Okay, this one was better. Sweet. Next time, that's what I'm doing. I want the button to be there. That's great. So the more strictly you can define your test, the better you're going to be. That's number 1. Number 2, define your metrics. What does success mean? Right? And this is the other thing. Sometimes people say, well, which email did better? Well, define better. Was it which one did more people open, or which one did more people click? What do I want them to do? A split test in email will give you 2 options. You can measure open rate or click rate and use one of those to determine your winner. If I'm testing a sender or a subject line, then I probably want to test on open rate. If I'm testing something in the email content, layout, button placement, changing up the CTA, then I want to measure on click rate, right? That's what I'm really looking at, is once they got into the email, which one drove action. Okay, so define what your metrics are. Define what looks like success. Then you want to randomize your test pool. Now, the nice thing for everybody on this call is that part's done for you because Virtuous is going to do that. When I choose my audience and I send my split test, Virtuous will then randomize that pool. The last thing I want is a bunch of people who tend to respond well to email being in the audience for one test, and people who tend historically to not engage with email to be in the audience of the other test. Right? I don't want to have that happen. So I really need to truly mix it up and randomize that test pool to make sure that I'm getting actionable results. And then, and this is the hard part, right? Waiting, it's the hardest part. You have to allow time for clean results. I can't just go for it. I can't say I'm going to send this email. I'm going to give it 10 minutes. I'm going to see which one more people open, and then we're going to let the email off the chain. We're going to go with it. Okay. Instead, I really need to allow time. So if I can allow a day, 2 days, I know there are some people who open email right away, and there's some people who might look at their email every other day. Shoot, my father, not a young man, probably opens his email once every 3 or 4 days. So give it time to make sure that I've really got actionable results. I want to have a clear winner in there before I send that winner. And all of this just means when you go in, make sure you've got a good plan for running your test. Right? That's really it. That's the secret sauce. So once I've done all of this stuff, how do I run a split test? Well, I'm glad that you asked that hypothetical question, because we're going to do that. We're going to look at some split tests here in Virtuous. And then I know we've got questions coming in. I want to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions as well. Okay, let's go ahead and do a little split testing. We're going to go to Virtuous Marketing. Sorry, I'm sneaking my coffee on you guys. And I'm going to go to the email screen. Now, the nice thing about split tests, and here's the A/B test results right up here. But the nice thing about doing split testing is I don't have to go anywhere different. I don't have to do anything new or unusual to start the process, which is pretty nice, at least in my estimation. Instead, all I really need to do is create an email. So I can do that. Oh yeah, there's my missing invisible mouse again. There we go. It happens every month. It was about to happen, or bound to happen. But let's say I want to start with a template. So one of these Virtuous templates over here. This one's pretty nice. So I'm going to use that to create a new email. Great. And in here, I can set up my email just like I normally would. So this might be my split test webinar email. Why don't I capitalize the last word? Maybe this is just going to go to my general communication list, and subject line, hello world. There we go. I can set the from name and from email, and underneath you can see you can send an A/B split test. I told you we use both. Soon as I toggle that, then this screen's going to look different. Okay, so first it says here, hey, how do you want to break this down? So by default, like we said, with a split test, you're going to have two versions, version A, version B. That's why it's called A/B testing. And I'm going to send version A and version B, like we said, to a smaller pool of people. Then based on the response from that pool, I'm going to take whichever email performed better, and I'm going to send that to the remaining folks in the audience. So by default, we're going to break this down 20%, 20%, 60%. Which is to say 20% of the audience is going to get version A, 20% get version B. Then after the testing phase is complete, we'll send whichever performed best to the remaining 60% of the folks on that list. You can drag this slider around if you want to change this. You can go all the way down to 5% for each test. You can go all the way up to 25%. Now again, just like with having a smaller window of time, a smaller pool of people does not get you such great results. So that's why we start out right about 20% for that test. And like we said, define your metrics. What are you looking for to determine your winner? And again, what you're testing will help define the metric you want to use. If you're testing something about the subject line or the sender, then open rate is probably what you're looking for. If you're testing something about the email content itself, then I'm probably looking at click rate, right? How many people clicked on whatever the CTA is in my email, okay? And then your test duration, so you'll see you have a minimum of 2 hours. That's you know, about as small as we want to give you for getting some sort of actionable data in terms of your results. You can go up to 72 hours. Test duration, meaning hey, how long are we going to wait before we let the winning version fly? Okay, so maybe you say you want to wait 24 hours, give it a day, fine. This is always in a number of hours. Please don't get crazy and put in 2.625 hours. It's just a whole number. And then you're going to name version A and version B. And if you want to just say, hey, this is split test, webinar A and split test webinar B, that's totally fine. You don't have to get crazy and give them fun names. You call it rocket and squirrel, whatever you want. Subject line here, maybe the subject line is, why, hello there. If I change the subject line, switch to open rate, right? If I'm going to change the email content, then I'll do click rate. So here, let's keep these the same. And maybe the sender is already me and I'm not changing anything about the sender because I want to change something about the email content. That's great. I hit next and that'll take me into the editor. And the editor is the same editor you've already seen, but with one slight change. So here's the editor. But up here, you see I've got buttons here to toggle between version A and version B. So maybe in here I say, hey, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of this because that's an old image. And I'm going to put in an image right up here. We're going to browse for it. And we're going to drop in our good old fun human fun logo. There we go. There's the main title. And then I've got my call to action at the top and at the bottom. That's great. Okay, so that's version A. That's my control version. Essentially, this is the version I would have sent anyway, if you want to think of it that way. And then over here, I can take a look at version B. Now, when I load up version B for the first time, it's going to say, hey, great, we'll make a copy of A and we'll give it to you in B. Great. And then I can come in and make changes. So maybe here I'm testing having the CTA only at the bottom of the email to see if that changes things. Now, if I make a whole mess of changes in here, right? Maybe I say, hey, this thing is gonna instead be just an image at the top and I get real nuts about changing this thing up. That's okay, right? Maybe I put this weird graphic up there, which is very, very large. I don't really like that. Let's make that a little bit more manageable. Whoo, there we go. Okay. And then maybe I say, hey, you know what, man, I like that better. I should put that into version A too. Well, if I've made a whole lot of changes to version B and I'm like, oh, that's a lot to do. The neat thing is in my actions, I can go ahead and sync my A/B versions. So I can sync version A to B, or I can take everything that's in version B and sync it to A. I can make them match and I can use either one as the starting point. Totally fine. Okay, so maybe I say, yeah, I'm going to take B and I'm going to sync it to A. Sweet. There we go. That's the big change there. Now they match. And then here, I want to copy this. And this other one, I'm going to take that and move it up here. So that again, I got my buttons at the top and bottom. There we go. Now I'm testing button placement and everything else between version A and B. Everything else is the same. You can still send a preview email, a view of preview. You can still send test emails, right? All of that stays the same. Okay, and then once I've got my email ready to go, then I click next. The sending is exactly the same. I can send it to my list. I could filter that with advanced options. I could pick a specific individual query or contact query, send it only to those folks. I could exclude my big donors, make sure they're not getting this email if I don't want them as part of the test. Same as sending any mass email. Okay, and then I go to next. Maybe I want to send this thing right now. I'm not going to wait. I apologize. I know the Wi-Fi is a little slow, but we'll give it a second to load. But this will actually show me the breakdown of individuals. Who is going to get version A? Who's going to get test version B? And how many folks are going to get the final or winning version of my email? I can get that whole breakdown before I go ahead and click send. And I want to make sure that that breakdown looks correct, right? If I've chosen the wrong breakdown, the wrong percentages for my split test, I can always go back and change it. But that's what we see here. Version A, version B, winning version, there are my totals. I can hit send. And that's going to go on its merry way. Now, once I've sent my split test and it's out there in the world, it's collecting results, right? I can keep tabs on it. I can see how it's doing. And I've got a special tab here for A/B test results. Okay, and here's one that I sent yesterday, as a matter of fact. So it's already completed. And if I click on that, that's going to give me a breakdown. It's going to say, hey, here's the winning version and how many people got it. Here is version 1, which, by the way, was the winner. And here's version 2, which did not win. Now, here I had zeros across the board because it was a fake email. Didn't send it to anybody real, so hard to get engagement. If there is not enough information to determine a clear winner, A will always be the winner. That's why A needs to be your control version. Version A should be the one that you want to send. Okay. Version A is always going to be the winner if we cannot determine a clear winner. Here, there was no way to determine a clear winner because nobody did anything. And then from here, I can see the actual email, and I can also go to the email activity screen where I can see the chart, clicks, opens. I can filter through those results the same way you do with any mass email. Okay, but it's a great way to be able to refine your email messaging, to make sure that you're sending the most effective emails that you can, and then take what you learn and apply that to your next test. Okay, I know that the CTA button at the top and bottom is the best way to go. Next thing I'm going to test is images, image placement, whatever it is. Again, one thing at a time, incremental improvement, right? Steady incremental improvement in your emails. That's the key. Okay. So we've got about 17 minutes or so left. I want to make sure, like I said, we can get to some of your questions. We've got some great questions coming in. I got to move this a little closer so that I can see. Okay. So in the receding environment, is it possible to preview the actual email receipt with user information before it gets sent out? No. When you preview that, it's always going to be populated with sample data. So wherever your merge fields are in your receipt, right? So if we flip back to Virtuous CRM here, wherever I've got those merge fields in my receipt, by the way, I've gotten so used to going to receding this way, just import tool and over, it's fantastic. Whatever I got those merge fields in my receipt, I can go ahead and see those merge fields get populated, but with sample data. So if I've used first name, I'll see John. If I use full name, it'll say John Doe. I'll see the gift information come in. So that way I can see what it will look like when it is populated with information. But I don't get to preview every receipt and see what it's going to look like for every recipient with their information. It's only going to give me that sample contact information. That was a great question. Oh, and look at that. We got a nice little note here saying personalized email templates are great. I am so glad to hear that. Again, I think that's a pretty cool feature. I'm glad to hear that people are already taking advantage of it. Question about it working with Office 365 email. Yes, as a matter of fact, it does. It'll work with whatever is the default email client on your computer. And as a matter of fact, to that end, we've added a couple of articles in here to our FAQ that'll actually walk through how to set Gmail or Outlook as your default email client. So it depends on the browser that you use, depends on whether you use a Mac or a PC as well. But you'll see a few different things in here in terms of how to do it in Chrome, how to do it in Firefox. Here's how to do it, the default mail settings on a Mac or in Windows 10. So there's a few ways to do that. As long as your default email handler is set up correctly, then you should be able to open those in the email system of your choice. Okay. Regarding personalized email templates, is there a way to expand the merge tags to include contact information, addresses, custom fields? I'll say not at this time. And one of the things you want to remember that's a little bit different and kind of distinct is when I send that email, I'm merging in, largely individual data because I'm sending that to an individual and not to a contact. So if at some point we started to add in some additional values, it might only be individual custom fields. Addresses are pulling from the contact. So I'm not sure. You know, we might see, hey, how useful are some of those things down the road? And you guys all know, if you have a use case for where, hey, this is the email we tend to like to send it, it would be great to do that from a personalized email template, and here's why. Send those in, right? We review this feedback all the time to see how can we make this better? How can we make this work? So all that to say, that's a great request. Send it in. But as we expand that, it might only expand to individual fields and maybe not contact fields. Okay. Is there a way to use the personalized email function if you are not on your phone or have a special email app installed such as Outlook? Oh, well, we just talked about that. So again, it's just about making sure that you've got the right email handler set up on your computer, right? That's the whole idea. So if you're using Chrome, Chrome has default handlers set up. And so if you want to use Chrome and you want to have that open in Outlook in 365 in your browser, if you want to have that open in Outlook as the program on your computer, you can do that. You just need to make sure that you have that default handler set up. Okay. So this looks like more of a support question. So we have a team member who sent emails appearing on his personal record when he sends emails to donors. This is something I would reach out to support about. Sounds like a support question. But when you send an email using email sync, which it sounds like this is, you want to remember that the email will sync to all of the email addresses on that record, including the sender. So if I have a contact record in Virtuous with my email address on it, and I send an email to a donor, their email address, and they're in Virtuous as well with that email address, that email, when it gets picked up by email sync, it will be added as a note to both of those records, to my record and to the donor's record. Okay, so it'll be added in both places based on that. So you want to keep that in mind with email sync, right? It'll always pick up all of the email addresses, including the sender, on the record. Now, part of that is because if you were to maybe not BCC, but CC the email sync address, and someone does reply all, well, that way their reply will also get captured and it will get logged as a note. So we look at the sender as well. Okay. When an email is sent using the new email template, will the send of that email be recorded in Virtuous Notes? So again, right, when we looked at that earlier, but remember, it depends on whether you have email sync set up or not for your account. If you do have email sync enabled, then that will automatically be logged as a note, right? And here it tells me right here, hey, you have email sync enabled. So it's automatically going to insert the email sync address as a BCC, and it's automatically going to log that note for me. If I do not have email sync enabled, then I'd want to make sure that I create a contact note. This did not default to being checked, if you notice that. It did not default to being checked because I have email sync. If I was not someone who had set up my email to sync with Virtuous, this would actually be checked by default to prompt me, hey, you didn't log anything here because your email address isn't synced. So make sure you put in a note to say, hey, what did you send this person? So that I'm still documenting my activity. But if I do have email sync enabled, it will log that automatically on the record as a contact note. Okay. So a little bit more than just a yes or no question, kind of dependent on how you're configured, but yes, it can. Okay, this is great. I love getting questions. Does the split test take into account the device used to view that email? So it's going to look differently on a phone versus on a computer. No, it's not going to take that into account because it's going to calculate the click rate overall for everybody who received that email. Right? As long as I've done enough of a randomized test group, and that's why I want a random group and a large enough pool so that some of those other variables I can't control, like did they open it on a mobile device versus did they open it on a desktop, are not going to have a huge impact on my results. And I do have to have a statistically significant winner in order to declare a winner. So if my open rate, if I have 10 people open A and 9 people open B, that's not enough to say that, I have a winner, or other way around. Even if I have 9 people open A, 10 people open B, that one open isn't enough to say B is the winner. I've got to have a statistically significant margin. Otherwise, it's always going to default to sending email A. So again, that version A is your control email, right? That's going to be the one that goes out if there's no clear winner. Okay. We had a question again about where setting the default email is. So again, if you go right into support, you can get to it from that page here. I just went into the FAQ section, which is near the bottom of the support page, but you could also just say in the search, default email client. And that'll get you how to set Outlook and how to set Gmail. And you can even do that in Virtuous proper, right? So if you were to open the little messenger in here where you send in notes, messages, things like that, you can also come in and search. So you could just say, hey, default email client, and that'll get you those same articles there. You can say, oh, great, that's how I do Outlook as my default email client, and that'll give you that here in this view. If it's a little too small, if you want to open it in a bigger screen or anything like that, you can always do it on the support page, or you can view it right here. Okay. Looks like that's it. I haven't seen anything come in through the chat either. That's fantastic. We're not going to be racing to get all the answers in, which is stellar and not at all our usual process. I think that's pretty good. I always feel bad when I have to leave questions unanswered because we run out of time. But everything we looked at today, I mean, the new receding tool, I think is really going to help a lot of you, especially those of you that have a lot of receipt templates that you send on a daily basis and have had to manage tons of different receding queries in order to do that. The personalized email templates, I mean, again, instead of having to tell your major gift officers, hey, go ahead and send an email and touch base, I mean, it's built into Virtuous. And by the way, one thing that we didn't touch on, but I should mention about the personalized email templates, this was in the release notes and everything else, but just to highlight it one step further, you can also associate those with an automation task. So if you've got an automation built up to say, built out for, hey, if someone gets assigned to your major gift portfolio, reach out and have your first touch point with them and say, hey, I want to get to know you better, whatever it is. You can now, in an automation, when you assign a task, you can select a personalized email template to associate with that task. When someone goes to complete that task, it'll pop open that personalized email template for them to send that email. Okay, it opens that same slide out that we saw for sending the personalized email. So it's a great way, instead of just having that task that says contact donor, hey, contact donor, and here's what to do. Use this template to contact that donor. So I'm glad everybody's having some good results with that. And again, the split tests, just a great way to refine the email that you're sending. Make sure that what you're sending is really working the best. You got to test. You got to test these things to see which one's going to perform better. And then continue to improve on that and continue to see improvement in your results. Okay. As always, thank you guys, and make sure that you do join us next month. Next month's going to be the one for the data geeks out there, I'm sure, but we'll have plenty to talk about as usual, because we're going to talk about tracking custom data effectively. Now we've got all kinds of things. We've got custom fields and custom field groups and custom collections and custom. We still got tags. We got everything. So, hey, what's the best way? I got all these very specific things for my organization, for our mission. What do I do with them? Where do I put them? What's the best way to track them in Virtuous based on what I want to do with this information? We don't just want to track it, right? I want to use it. Do I want to drive automation? I want to drive outreach. I want to make sure I use it in segmentation. There's all sorts of use cases for that custom data. So we'll talk about some tips for making those decisions so that you can really own your data. Okay. And as always, I like to leave you with something from people who are generally much smarter than I am. And I thought this really kind of summed up what we were talking about today, which is that creative experimentation propels our culture forward, right? We don't just do the same thing every day and see how it went. We are always experimenting and improving, and that's how we see growth. And that's how we carry our mission forward, okay, to do what we need to do. All right. So thank you, everybody. I just saw a last minute question come in about permissions for using the email feature. I think that's in regard to the personalized email templates. No, there's no permission changes. The only permissions involved are you have to be an admin to create the templates, but anybody can send them. And remember, that's because anybody can send an email now, right? All you do is click on the email address on the screen and that'll pop open your email app and you can type out an email to somebody. So now you're at least giving them some rails to run on, which is a little bit better, right? But everybody's always been able to email someone. Now at least you can give them some better tools. So there's no permissioning about sending the personalized templates, but only admins can create them. Okay, got that one in under the wire. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining me, and I will talk to you all again next month. Bye, everybody.